Thanks. Yeah, my name's Stacey, Dr. Stacey Pitsillides, and I'm a Senior Research Fellow in Design at Northumbria University. And I guess the first thing to introduce myself is to, I guess, explore a little bit, which I didn't really do in the video, what design has to do with the kind of digital death online and to do with the law kind of side of things. And I think for me, it always comes down to making. So these technological systems are made by us. And I know Elaine and other people refer to the fact that some of these systems have not been designed with death in mind. And our relationship to both our bodies, the data that we produce and those new kind of informational or data bodies, and the relationship to the artifacts that are existing within the system that effectively are linked to wide communities are always things that have been of interest to me. So this kind of difference between our physical bodies and our relationship to our bodies, which also have elements of data and privacy involved. At the end of the video, I mentioned kind of the idea of donation of posthumous medical records for kind of scientific research, the idea that the data that we produce that goes into kind of medical systems could also be shared. But these kind of tensions, I guess, that a lot of the other speakers bring up between our data being owned by us and being linked effectively to our body. So kind of the idea of a personal data store or personal data mine, as opposed to that data being more communal or more community focused or links to the world. I think the other thing that I found really interesting that I also didn't mention in the video is the kind of UNESCO intangible heritage concept, which originally was brought for communities, for example, people who are making baskets and things, so like basket weaving and that kind of idea. So the idea was that UNESCO would preserve those kinds of intangible heritage, so things that we couldn't keep as a physical object. And now there's been some movements within UNESCO and that kind of idea to preserve digital heritage as an intangible heritage. So things like some of the demo scene music and games that were produced in particular regions. And I think that that sort of links to, I guess, my question of the kind of layers of agency and the layers of the self that link between the kind of personal body, I guess the data body or the data extension of the body or self, and then the assets or objects that exist within the system or the network, whether that is Facebook or whether that is online or somewhere else, which are linked to communities. So they're not objects or assets in isolation, they're always connected and networked and kind of explored in that way. And I guess how we can create frames that map across those different levels and layers. And, you know, within the design question, that's also in terms of how we design these systems. So one of the examples I mentioned in the video is a woman engaging in augmented reality with her child who is deceased, and the way that they design in Korea. So this was made for a TV show. So again, lots of layers there in terms of why it was made, how it was made, who engaged with it, who scripted the child, and what does the child say to her, but also in terms of the technologies used. So things like haptics, so that she could stroke the child's hair. So the way that we build those kind of layers of engagement between the physical body and the kind of new data selves or new digital virtual legacies, avatars, etc. So I guess, I hope that that's a good enough introduction to help people understand where I'm coming from and where the role of design I see within this is, and how the question really being that kind of individual to community. How do we map across that kind of thing? And how do we map across something that is so intrinsically networked into everything and everyone else?
Thanks so much, Stacey. Patrick, it looks like your video just went off. Are you available to go next?
Jed, could I, before, sorry, before Patrick comes on, could I just ask Stacey, in your video, you very often or regularly mention the term agency, and I just wondered from your perspective, what you thought, what you meant by agency.
Yeah, so for me, agency is really important because it links to kind of some of the, I guess, Latourian theories around actor network theory and sort of the way that things relate to other things. So the fact that when something is put into the world, I guess it also links back to sort of thing theory as well. So the kind of Heideggerian and sort of Bill Brown, I think it's called. So when things stop working, we see how they interact with the world. So there's this kind of background around kind of actor network theory and around the fact that broken things tell us a lot about how they're meant to be used. So for example, the idea of the robot breaking down, who's a caregiver for the human, being something broken that we should dispose of and get rid of. And yet that makes it more precious because we are allowed as the person to take care of that thing that's breaking down. So this kind of rebalancing, I guess it's also about power relations. So the kind of rebalancing of power between something that is given agency and the fact that something that becomes disconnected from us, that becomes an information body or something other in the world, gains an agency through the way that people use it and through that alternative interaction. Sorry, as I said, I might not be as, but yeah, that's the idea behind it.
Okay, thank you.